On New Year's Day, my husband told me he was gay and leaving me, and everyone else told me to be proud of him. The biggest insult, though. The 30 years of gaslighting. His new lover was his best friend, best man, and godparent to our children. Everyone expected us to just congratulate them and wish them well. Facilitate them, if you will. Who's we, you're asking? Me and his lover's wife, Julia. I guess I'd better tell you a bit more about me. My name is Michelle Groves. I'm 63 and I've lived in Kansas for as long as I've been alive. My husband is, or shall I say was, William? He's 65 and worked as a senior operations manager at a plant nearby. I'm going to tell you his new lover's name once and once only because I can't stand to even hear it. His lover is Jordan, a 62-year-old librarian. From here on out, he's William's lover. And if you're already thinking, Michelle, that's messy, I want you to know something. This wasn't messy. This was rehearsed. It was tidy. It was practiced. It was folded up like a crisp little napkin and placed neatly on top of my life while I stood there holding the plates. New Year's Day was just the day they finally stopped pretending they cared whether I knew. The morning started normal. That's the wild part. I made coffee. Dark. 2 scoops of the good stuff because it was a holiday, and at 63, I refused to drink sad coffee on principle. I stood at the kitchen window, looking out at our frozen little backyard, watching a squirrel hop around like it owed somebody money. William walked in wearing that flannel he loved. The one I bought him at Tractor Supply because it made him look like a man who knew how to chop wood, even though the only thing he ever chopped was my patience. He kissed my cheek like he always did. Not tender. Not cold. Just routine. Like a time clock. "Happy New Year," he said. "Happy New Year," I said back. He poured his coffee. Didn't sit. Just stood there in the middle of the kitchen like it was a break room, and he was waiting for somebody to finish in the microwave. Then he cleared his throat. And I swear to God, the way he cleared his throat made my stomach tighten, because I'd heard that sound before. That sound meant he was about to tell me something he'd already decided I had to accept. "Michelle," he said, "I need to talk to you." I didn't even look at him. I kept my eyes on the window. "About what?" I said. "The fact that you still don't know where we keep the foil after 34 years. He gave a little laugh. A dry one. Like he wanted credit for finding humor while he was about to light my house on fire. "It's serious." I turned then, finally. His face was calm. Not nervous. Not guilty. Calm like a man who thinks he's about to receive a round of applause for not lying anymore. "I'm gay," he said. I blinked once. I didn't gasp. I didn't clutch my pearls. I didn't do any of the things people like to imagine a woman my age does when reality shifts. I just stood there and waited for the rest of it. Because nobody drops that sentence in a marriage like a polite little fun fact and then walks away. He swallowed. "And I'm leaving," he said. There it was. And then, because men like William never stop at the first injury, he added the dagger part. "I'm leaving you for my best friend." I stared at him. The room felt too bright. My mouth went dry. My first thought wasn't even heartbreak. My first thought was, of course it's him. Of course it's the man who's been in every photo since 1994 like a damn watermark. Of course it's the man who held my newborn son before my own mother did because he happened to be there and I was too tired to argue. Of course it's the man we made godparent because William insisted it meant family. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. Not because I was stunned. Because my brain was replaying 3 decades of tiny moments like a highlight reel of disrespect I'd been trained to ignore. William kept talking because silence makes guilty people nervous, but it makes confident liars bold. "I want you to know this isn't your fault," he said. I almost laughed. Not your fault. That's what you tell somebody after a car accident. This wasn't an accident. This was a construction project. He kept going. "I'm finally living honestly. I've been suppressing this for years." Years. That was his word. Not decades. Not a lifetime. Years. Like this was something that happened because he got stuck in traffic for too long and had time to think. "I hope you can be proud of me," he said. And there it was. The first demand. Not empathy. Not care. Pride. Like my job was to be a supportive audience member in the destruction of my own marriage. I finally spoke. "Are you joking?" I said. He frowned. like I was embarrassing him. Michelle, please don't make this ugly. Make it ugly. That was his favorite phrase when he wanted to control the temperature of a room. It didn't mean ugly. It meant, don't make me face consequences. Who knows, I asked. He paused. Then he said it like he was reading from a script. Everybody. I felt my stomach drop. Everybody, I repeated. He nodded once. My sister. Your sister. The kids. Pastor Ken, most of the plant eyes. People have suspected. I held my mug so tight my fingers hurt. So I'm the last one, I said. William's eyes didn't even flinch. I didn't want to hurt you, he said. I stared at him and thought, you didn't want to hurt me, but you invited an entire audience. Then he hit me with the part that still makes my blood heat up when I think about it. We're going to tell everyone together today, he said. We, I said slowly. Yes, he said like it was obvious. At the brunch, I wanted to be respectful. Respectful. He had the nerve to use the word respectful while he was asking me to participate in my own erasure. I put my mug down carefully. Like if I moved too fast I might throw it. Who planned this, I asked. William's jaw tightened. You know who, he said. And that was the first time in 34 years that William looked afraid of my reaction. Not because he loved me. Because he was afraid I would say something that messed up the narrative. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about truth. This was about branding. The brunch was at the church fellowship hall because of course it was. Kansas doesn't do betrayal quietly. Kansas does betrayal under fluorescent lighting next to a crock pot. The room smelled like cinnamon rolls and ham. Somebody's aunt was already setting out paper plates like this was a celebration. William walked in like a politician, smiling. Handshakes. Warm pats on shoulders. I walked in behind him like a woman heading to her own trial. Our daughter Megan rushed over and hugged me. She squeezed too tight. Mom, she whispered, please don't freak out. That was what she led with. Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry. Please don't freak out. Like my emotions were the problem that needed managing. Our son, Tyler, didn't hug me at all. He nodded at me like I'd just arrived at a work meeting. His wife Ashley gave me a look that was pure pity, and I wanted to slap her with a napkin. Then I saw Julia across the room. Julia had been in my life for almost 30 years. She and I weren't best friends. We weren't enemies either. We were the kind of women who shared PTA duties, casserole recipes, and the silent knowledge that our husbands were closer to each other than they were to anybody else. She looked like she'd been crying. And when she saw me, something flashed in her eyes. Not empathy. Not solidarity. Something sharper. Something like, don't you dare make this harder for me. I watched William drift toward his lover like a magnet. They stood side by side near the front. Two men in their 60s, smiling like they were about to announce a surprise vacation. Pastor Ken tapped a spoon against a glass. All right, folks, he said, cheerful as a game show host. Before we dig in, William has something he wants to share. My heart thudded once. William took a breath. Then he spoke, loud enough for the room. I want to start the new year in truth, he said. I'm gay. There were murmurs. A gasp. Somebody said, oh my. William's lover stood beside him with a careful expression that looked like humility but felt like performance. William continued. I've been best friends with him for decades. And now we're going to build a life together. Silence. Then, and I will never forget this, Pastor Ken smiled. Well, Pastor Ken said, isn't that brave? Brave. Like William had rescued a kitten from a highway. Somebody clapped. Then somebody else. Then the clapping spread in that awkward way it does when people aren't sure what to do, so they do whatever makes them seem like a good person. And then William looked at me. Right at me. And he said, Michelle has been an incredible wife, and I hope she can be proud of me for finally being who I am. The room turned toward me. Do you know what that feels like? To have your entire community turn to look at you like you're a judge. Like your reaction is going to determine whether they're allowed to keep liking him. I felt heat rise in my chest. I could have stood up right then and lit the truth on fire. I could have said proud. Proud of the man who made me feel crazy for 30 years. Proud of the man who took my marriage vows and used them like a shield. But then I looked at my daughter's face. Please don't freak out. And I realized something. They wanted me to freak out. They needed me to freak out. If I freaked out, I'd become the villain. If I freaked out, they'd get to say, "See. This is why we couldn't tell her." So I smiled. I did the one thing that makes people like William nervous. I stayed calm. "I'm proud of anybody who chooses honesty," I said. My voice sounded normal. Pastor Ken beamed like I'd just passed some moral exam. William exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a decade. And Julia, across the room, looked at me like she wanted to throw a fork. After brunch, people swarmed them like they were celebrities. "We love you," people said. "So brave," people said. "We support you," people said. Nobody swarmed me. Nobody asked me if I needed air. Nobody asked Julia if she was okay. They treated us like support staff. Like we were part of the packaging. That afternoon, Julia called me. Her voice was tight. "We need to talk," she said. "Yeah," I said. "We do." She told me to come to her house. "And I want you to understand the irony. I had been in that house 100 times. I had sat at her table. I had held her babies. She had held mine. We had swapped Christmas gifts. We had done the whole small-town marriage thing. And now I was walking into it like an enemy." Julia opened the door and didn't even say hello. She just turned and walked back into her living room like she was too angry to waste breath on manners. I followed. She spun around. And the second we were alone, it came out. Not tears. Not sadness. Rage. "You look smug," she snapped. I blinked. I looked smug. "Yes," she said, voice rising. "Like you were enjoying watching me fall apart." I laughed once sharp. "Julia, I was trying not to throw a chair." "Well, you didn't," she shot back. "You sat there like Mother Teresa." "I sat there like a woman who didn't want to be painted as a monster," I said. Julia's eyes flashed. "Or maybe you just didn't care. Maybe that's why he did it. Maybe you stopped being a wife a long time ago." There it was. The first punch. And I'm not proud of what came next, but I'm also not going to pretend I turned 63 and suddenly became a saint. I stepped closer. "Don't," I said. "Don't you dare try to blame me for what your husband and mine did." Julia scoffed. "Oh, so now you're claiming him." "He's still my husband today," I snapped. 34 years. That wasn't some cute little hobby. Julia's face twisted. "And I had 29 years. Don't act like I'm some side character in your tragedy." "I'm not," I said. "But you're standing here acting like you're the only one who got humiliated." Julia's voice went sharp. "You're not the only one who got lied to, Michelle." "Oh," I said, "I know. I'm just trying to figure out how you didn't see it either." Her eyes widened. "Excuse me." I pointed toward the hallway. "You and I have been at the same barbecues, the same birthdays, the same church picnics," I said. "You're telling me you never noticed how they looked at each other?" Julia's chin lifted. "I noticed. So why didn't you say something?" I asked. She stared at me. "Because every time I tried, you acted like I was being dramatic." That hit me. Hard. Julia took a breath and her voice dropped lower, meaner. "You used to joke about it," she said. "You used to say those two would marry each other if they could. Like it was funny." I felt my throat tighten. Because she wasn't wrong. I had joked. I had joked because the alternative was to admit something I didn't know how to face. Julia's hands shook. "And now," she said, "everyone's acting like I'm supposed to clap for them while my life gets bulldozed." I let out a bitter laugh. "Welcome," I said. "That's exactly what they expect." Julia's eyes narrowed. She stepped toward me. "You know what?" she said. "Maybe this is your karma. You always acted like you were better than me. Like your marriage was the gold standard." I laughed again. "My marriage was the gold standard." Julia's mouth tightened. "You always had that look, like you had it all under control. Like you were the stable one and I was just the messy one." I shook my head. "Oh, Julia," I said. "If I was stable, it's because I learned early that if I didn't hold it together, nobody else would." Julia's eyes flashed again, but softer this time. "And you're blaming me," she said quietly, "for not warning you, like I could have saved you." I stared at her. "Maybe I am," I admitted. Julia's lips trembled. "Maybe I'm blaming you because if I blame you," I said, "I don't have to face how stupid I feel." That silence that followed was thick. Julia looked away. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. They were supposed to be safe, she said. They were supposed to be boring. Yeah, I said. They were supposed to be the dependable ones. Julia wiped her face with the back of her hand like she was mad at herself for crying. Then she said something that changed the whole air in the room. This is what they want, she said. I looked at her. What? Julia took a shaky breath. They want us to fight, she said. They want us to blame each other. Because if we're busy tearing each other apart, we won't look at what they actually did. My chest tightened again, but this time it wasn't pure rage. It was clarity. Julia stepped toward me and lowered her voice. You know what they said to me? She whispered. What? I asked. Julia's laugh was ugly. He told me, she said, that you'd be fine, that you were strong, that you'd understand, like you were a damn character reference. I felt heat flare up again. He told me, Julia went on, that if I got emotional, you'd make it harder. He said you were proud already. My jaw clenched. So they used me to manage you, I said. Julia nodded. And they used me to make you look graceful. I stared at her. And right then, in Julia's living room, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not friendship. Alignment. Because we were both standing in the same disgusting position. Being asked to host the party for our own replacement. I took a breath. All right, I said. So what do we do? Julia looked at me and her eyes were sharp again, but focused now. We play nice, she said. I let out a humorless laugh. We play nice, I repeated. Julia nodded. We smile. We don't freak out. We don't scream. We don't give them the story they want. I stared at her. And then, Julia's mouth curled, just slightly. And then we get our lives back, she said. I stared at her for another second, then I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was the first thing that had felt like power all day. Okay, I said. But I'm warning you. Julia raised an eyebrow. I'm not going to be nice to you the whole time, I said. You're still annoying. Julia snorted. Please. You're exhausting. And just like that, we had something that wasn't friendship. It was a truce with teeth. The first week after the announcement was a parade of performative compassion. People texted William. We're so happy for you. So brave. So proud. People texted me. You're handling this with such grace. Grace. Everybody loved my grace. Nobody loved my pain. William moved out within 10 days. Not into an apartment. Not into a rental. Into William's lover's house. The same house I'd sat in for Thanksgiving. The same house where I'd watched my children open presents. That's what makes betrayal burn. Not the act. The familiarity. The first time William came back to the house to get some things. He walked in like a man visiting a museum exhibit of his old life. He looked around. Then he looked at me. You're doing okay, he said. Not a question. A statement. Like he was checking a box. I'm great, I said. I've always wanted to be a supporting character in my own marriage. William frowned like he didn't appreciate my tone. Michelle, he said, don't do that. Do what? I asked. Speak. He exhaled. We're trying to do this respectfully. I stared at him. You mean quietly, I said. He didn't deny it. Everybody's watching, he said. And there it was again. The audience. William cared more about being watched than he ever cared about being honest. He held up a folder. I brought paperwork, he said, so we can start the separation. I looked at the folder. What paperwork? I asked. The financials, he said. Assets. Retirement. House. I took the folder and didn't open it. Interesting, I said. You're ready. William's lips tightened. I've thought about this for a long time. A long time. There it was. And suddenly that phrase didn't feel like honesty. It felt like confession. He had been planning this. For years. Maybe decades. I smiled. Okay, I said. I've got a New Year's resolution too. William blinked. I nodded. This year I'm not questioning myself. His eyes narrowed slightly. What does that mean? It means, I said calmly, I'm done being told I'm paranoid. William's face tightened, but he recovered fast. Michelle, he said soft, nobody thinks you're paranoid. I laughed once. That's funny, I said. Because I've got 30 years of feeling crazy that says otherwise. William opened his mouth, closed it again. Then he tried something else. The gentle voice. You know, he said, we're still family. I stared at him. No, I said. We're history. William's jaw clenched. Don't make this ugly, he said again. I tilted my head. William, I said, you moved in with your lover. You announced it at church. You asked me to clap. Ugly already happened. I'm just standing in it. His face flushed. He turned away and started walking through the house, grabbing things. Avoiding my eyes. He went to the bedroom closet, and while he was pulling shirts off hangers, I opened the folder. The first page was a list of accounts. Checking, savings, retirement, and right there in black and white was an account number I didn't recognize. I flipped the page. More numbers, more accounts, an LLC name, a neat little line item labeled consulting. I stared at it. Because I'd worked in payroll and admin for years. Not fancy finance. But I knew enough to know when something looked staged. I didn't say a word. I waited. I told Julia that night. We met at a diner off the highway, the kind with bottomless coffee and waitresses who call you honey, even when you look like you might commit a felony. Julia slid into the booth and immediately said, he's already got papers too. I didn't even act surprised. They're synchronized, I said. Julia's mouth tightened. You see an LLC, she said. I nodded. You see one too. Julia pulled out her own folder. Same structure, same language, same tone. Different numbers, same story. We sat there staring at the paperwork like we were reading our own autopsies. Then Julia laughed. It was bitter. Ugly. I swear to God, she said, if they used the same damn template, they probably did, I said. Julia leaned back. They've been running this like a project plan. I stared at the pages again. And I said the first thing that popped into my head. You know what kills me? I said. Julia's eyes flicked up. What? They couldn't plan a vacation without fighting, I said. But they planned leaving us like a military operation. Julia's laugh cracked. Because this mattered, she said. Not us. We sat in silence for a moment. And then I said, we need copies of everything. Julia nodded. Already started. I raised my eyebrows. Of course you did. Julia gave me a look. Don't sound impressed. It's not cute. It's a little cute, I said. Shut up, she muttered. We started meeting twice a week. Not because we enjoyed it. Because the more we compared notes, the clearer it got. They weren't just leaving. They were extracting. Taking what they could. Minimizing what they owed, rewriting the story so they looked heroic. And if we weren't careful, we'd be left with the emotional damage and the financial liability. One night, around week 3, Julia called me and her voice sounded strange. Michelle, she said, I need you to come over. Because I found something, she said. And if I'm right, I'm going to throw up. I drove to her house. She met me at the door with her laptop open like a weapon. She pulled up a document. It was an insurance form. Beneficiary change. Her name was crossed out. William's lover's name was added. Dated 5 years ago. Julia's hands shook. I never signed this, she whispered. I felt my stomach drop. I leaned in. The signature line. It looked like hers. But it wasn't. It was the kind of fake that only works when nobody expects you to check. Julia stared at it. Then she looked at me. Did William ever handle paperwork for you, she asked. I swallowed. Yeah, I said. All the time. I'll take care of it, honey. Julia's eyes narrowed. I felt the hair on my arms rise. I went home that night and dug through my files. I pulled out old retirement statements. Benefit elections. And there, buried in the pages like a snake in tall grass, I found a change I didn't remember making. An emergency contact. Not me. William's lover. My throat went tight. This wasn't just betrayal. This was infrastructure. They had built a second marriage inside our first ones. And they'd done it so quietly we'd been living in it without seeing it. That's when I knew something else too. This wasn't going to end with a dramatic confrontation. That's what they wanted. They wanted tears and screaming and a scene. What they didn't want was 2 women who understood paperwork. And I'm going to tell you something. Paperwork is the closest thing to magic this country has. Because a person can lie to your face for 30 years. But a form tells the truth. At the time I thought finding those beneficiary changes was the worst thing that would happen. I was wrong. Because 2 weeks later I got a letter. Not from a friend. Not from the church. From the IRS. It wasn't a full audit notice. Not yet. It was a "we need clarification" letter. A polite little warning shot. My hands went cold when I saw it. I sat at my kitchen table and read it twice. Then I called Julia. "I got a letter," I said. Julia's voice went quiet. "I did too." We met again at the diner. This time we didn't order food. We just sat there with our letters spread out like a crime scene. Julia whispered, "They put it in our names." I stared at my letter. "They put it in our names," I repeated. Julia's eyes were wet, but her voice was hard. "They used us," she said. "They used our marriages like shields." I took a slow breath. "No," I said. "They tried to." Julia blinked. "What?" I leaned forward. "We're not taking this," I said. "We file first." Julia stared. "File what?" "Protective disclosure," I said. "We separate ourselves before they can drag us down with them." Julia swallowed. "You know how to do that," she said. I nodded. "I know how to find someone who does." Julia exhaled. "I hate you a little for being calm right now." I snorted. "Trust me, I'm not calm. I'm controlled." Julia nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "Controlled it is. We hired attorneys. Separate ones. We didn't tell the men. Not yet. We didn't threaten. We didn't warn. We gathered. Bank statements. Emails. Forms. Dates. And the whole time Julia and I kept doing what we did best. Sniping. Not enough to break the alliance. Just enough to keep it honest. "You ever think," Julia said one day while we were sorting through documents, "that you ignored the signs because you wanted to be the woman with the perfect marriage?" I looked at her. "You ever think," I shot back, "that you ignored the signs because you didn't want to admit your husband wasn't as boring as you thought?" Julia rolled her eyes. "My husband was boring. Not that boring," I said. "He built an entire secret life." Julia glared. "Stop being smug." I smirked. "I'm not smug. I'm amused." "You're insufferable," she muttered. "And you're cranky," I said. "Maybe we should start a club." We learned more as we dug. William with his plant job had authority. Budgets. Vendors. Approvals. William's lover with his records work had access. Documents. Archiving. Digital trails. Together they'd done what men like them always do. They'd taken advantage of the fact that people assume older, respectable men are harmless. They weren't harmless. They were careful. But careful doesn't mean untouchable. It just means the consequences are quieter. And quieter consequences are the ones that last. Our kids didn't help. That's another layer that makes it burn. Megan kept texting me things like, "Mom, please be compassionate." Compassion. Like I was dealing with a sick puppy, not a 34-year marriage collapsing by design. Tyler actually said to my face, "He's finally being honest, Mom." I stared at him. "Honest," I said. "You mean the part where he lied to me for decades? Or the part where he forged documents?" Tyler flinched. He didn't know about the documents. None of them did. Because William had been careful to make sure the kids had the clean narrative. They got the version where he was brave. We got the version where we were liabilities. Julia's daughter Rachel was worse. Rachel went to Julia's house and said, "Mom, if you make this hard, you're going to look bigoted." Julia told me that and her eyes were on fire. "I wanted to slap her," Julia said. I nodded. "Same. I wanted to slap mine too." It's like they think betrayal comes with a halo if you label it correctly. Julia leaned back. "They're scared to be on the wrong side of a story." "Yeah," I said. "And our husbands made sure the only wrong side was us. We didn't argue with the kids. We didn't beg them. We let them stay confused. Because the truth was coming. And truth doesn't require a sales pitch. It requires a timeline. The first real crack in the men's confidence came in March. William called me. His voice was upbeat, fake. "Hey," he said, "I need you to sign something." I smiled to myself. "Do you?" I said. "It's just a form," he said. For the house. So we can list it smoothly. I said. Send it to my attorney. William paused. Your attorney, he repeated. Yep, I said. New Year's resolution, remember. I'm not questioning myself. I'm also not signing a damn thing without advice. His voice tightened. Michelle, he said, you're being difficult. I laughed. I'm being informed, I said. There's a difference. He tried to soften. We said we'd do this respectfully, he said. You mean quietly, I said. Silence. Then he said, you're going to make people think you're bitter. I let out a slow breath. William, I said, I don't care what people think. I care what's true. He snapped then. You're going to ruin this, he said. And there it was. Ruin. Not my life. Not my heart. His new life. The one he wanted to debut like a product launch. I said calmly, you should have thought about that before you made me your shield. Then I hung up. Julia got her own call the next day. Her husband told her, we want to do this with love. Julia told him, love didn't seem to require honesty, so don't start preaching now. He didn't like that. Men like that never do. By April, the compliance dominoes started falling. Not because we screamed. Because we filed. The plant began an internal review. Quiet. Not a scandal. Not a headline. Just a meeting William wasn't invited to. William came to my house that night, furious. His cheeks were red. He stood in my living room and said, did you do this? I stared at him. Do what? I asked. You know, he said, voice tight. The audit. The questions. The sudden scrutiny. I let my face stay blank. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said. William's eyes narrowed. Michelle, he said, don't play games. I tilted my head. Don't play games, I repeated. That's funny, because I'm not the one who's been playing double life for 30 years. His jaw clenched. He stepped closer. You're trying to punish me for being who I am, he snapped. And I swear, if anger could be bottled, I would have sold it and retired on the profit. I looked him dead in the eye. No, I said quietly. I'm responding to what you did. Don't confuse your identity with your behavior. One is yours. The other is mine to judge. William froze. Because men like William can handle anger. They can handle tears. They can handle hysterics because those are easy to dismiss. They cannot handle a woman who speaks like a judge. He swallowed. Everybody's going to see you as cruel, he said. I smiled. William, I said, everybody already saw me as furniture. I can handle cruel. He opened his mouth again, but his phone buzzed. He looked at it. His face changed. He turned away from me, answering it in a low voice. Yeah, he said. Okay. No, I didn't. His shoulders sagged as he listened. When he hung up, he looked 10 years older. What? I asked. He stared at me like he hated me. They're moving my retirement date up, he said. They said it's simpler. Simpler. That's corporate language for, we don't want you near anything anymore. I nodded slowly. That's tough, I said. William's eyes burned. You did this, he said. I shrugged. I filed paperwork, I said. You filed lies. Guess which one holds up? He stormed out. Julia called me 15 minutes later, breathless. It's happening, she said. What? I asked. The library board, she said. They've scheduled a review. They're asking about document access. I closed my eyes for a second. Okay, I said. Stay calm. Julia gave a sharp laugh. Oh, I'm calm. I'm calm like a woman holding matches. We kept going. Slow. Controlled. Precise. By May, the men were no longer the stars of their own story. They were defendants in a quiet procedural unraveling. Friends stopped calling. Not out of hate. Out of discomfort. Nobody wanted to be near mess, even if the mess was wrapped in bravery language. The men planned a celebration in June. Not a wedding. Not officially. A commitment dinner. Invitations went out with tasteful fonts. A little speech about authenticity. A request for support. My daughter called me. Mom, she said, nervous, are you going? I laughed. To what? I asked. The dinner where I'm supposed to clap while two men toast to the life they stole. Megan, I said, voice steady, I'm not going, and neither are you. There was silence. You can't tell me what to do, she said. No, I agreed. But I can tell you what will happen. You'll go, you'll clap, you'll post a picture, and then you'll wonder why your mother's face looks like she disappeared from the family. Megan's voice softened. Mom, she whispered, I don't want to lose you. I swallowed. Then stop asking me to shrink, I said. She didn't respond. But she didn't go. The dinner happened anyway. From what I heard, it was quiet. A lot of empty chairs. A lot of polite smiles. A lot of people suddenly remembering they had other plans. That's the thing about social consequences. They don't have to be loud to be lethal. Julia and I met in my kitchen the next day. She sat at my table staring at her coffee like it had offended her. They looked ridiculous, she said. I raised an eyebrow. Who told you? Julia smirked. My cousin went. She said it felt like attending a funeral where the body was still talking. I snorted. That's Kansas for you, I said. We don't do scenes. We do silence. Julia looked at me. You know what kills me? What, I asked. They thought they'd be celebrated, she said. They thought we'd be the supportive ex-wives like in some feel-good movie. I nodded. Julia's mouth tightened. And instead, she said, they're just men. Old men, with paperwork problems. I smiled. That's what happens, I said. When you build your new life on the bones of the old one. The final phase came in late summer. The house. William assumed he'd control it. He'd always controlled it. But my attorney had been working quietly, and so had Julia's. The proceeds were structured. The liabilities were isolated. The risks were separated. And when William realized he couldn't just bulldoze through, he tried to charm. He came over one afternoon with that careful smile. Michelle, he said, I don't want this to be ugly between us. I leaned against the counter and crossed my arms. William, I said, you keep saying ugly like it's a weather condition. You made it ugly. I'm just not decorating it. He flinched. He tried again. You know I'll always care about you, he said. I stared at him. Really, I said. Is that why you made your lover the emergency contact on my benefits? His face went white. He blinked fast. You found that, he whispered. I smiled. Yeah, I found a lot. His mouth opened, then closed. His throat bobbed. I didn't mean he started. Stop, I said. Don't give me the I didn't mean speech. You meant enough to do it, so live with it. He swallowed. I just wanted it to be easy, he said, voice cracking. Easy. That word. That's what men like William want from women. Make it easy. Make it smooth. Make it quiet. I looked him in the eye. You took 34 years of my life, I said. You don't get easy. William's eyes flashed with anger. Then he tried the old threat. You're going to end up alone, he snapped. I laughed. William, I said, I've been alone for years. You were just physically present. That one landed. He stepped back like I'd slapped him. He left without another word. By October, the men were no longer talking about pride. They were talking about survival. By November, Julia's ex had lost his position. Not publicly. Not scandalously. Just quietly removed. Quietly replaced. The library board didn't want drama. They wanted distance. By December, William's early retirement was set. His reputation at the plant was not what it had been. Men like William live for being the reliable guy. The guy who runs things. When that's gone, what's left is just a man. New Year's Eve arrived again like a dare. A full year. 12 months of controlled rage. 12 months of receipts. 12 months of two women learning how to stand in the same room without clawing each other's eyes out. Julia came over that night. She brought champagne. I had snacks out because even if my life is burning, I'm still not going to be rude to guests. We sat on my porch with blankets, watching the neighborhood fireworks crackle in the distance. Julia took a sip and sighed. You ever think, she said, that they rehearsed the speech? I let out a slow laugh. Every day, I said. I think they practiced it in the mirror. Julia shook her head. And we were supposed to be the audience, she said. I looked at her. No. Julia raised an eyebrow. We were supposed to be the props, I said. Julia snorted. Yeah, well, props don't file paperwork. I clinked my glass against hers. We sat in silence for a minute. Then Julia said, I still can't believe you blamed me that day. I glanced at her. I did, I admitted. And you blamed me too. Julia smirked. Yeah. I laughed. And you're dramatic. Julia scoffed. I'm appropriately reactive. I smiled, and for the first time all year it felt like the smile reached my eyes. You know what's weird, I said. Julia looked at me. What? I don't hate you, I said. Julia blinked. Then she looked away, swallowing. I don't hate you either, she said, voice rough. But don't get sentimental. I'll throw up. I chuckled. We watched the fireworks. And then, close to midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Megan. Mom. I'm sorry. I didn't understand. I do now. My throat tightened. Julia noticed. What? She asked. I showed her. Julia nodded slowly. They always understand once it affects them, she said. I exhaled. Julia leaned back and looked at the sky. So what do we call it? She asked. I frowned. Call what? This year, she said. What do we call what happened? I stared into my glass for a moment. Then I said, I call it the year I stopped questioning myself. Julia nodded. I call it the year I stopped being polite, she said. I smiled. You were never that polite. Julia shoved my shoulder lightly. Shut up. Midnight hit. Fireworks popped in the distance. I stood and raised my glass. Julia raised hers too. And I said it plain. This year, I said, I'm not being proud of somebody else's truth. Julia nodded. I'm being honest about mine, I finished. Julia clinked her glass against mine. To honesty, she said. The whole kind. We drank. And in that quiet Kansas night, I thought about the line everyone had shoved down my throat. Be proud of him. Be proud. As if pride was a duty. As if my pain was optional. And I realized the final insult wasn't the leaving. It was the expectation. The expectation that two women could be erased and still serve coffee with a smile. So here's how I'll end it. I didn't ruin their new life. I didn't attack them. I didn't scream. I didn't post anything. I didn't beg for people to pick a side. I simply stopped carrying them. I stopped being their shield. And when I finally looked at the man who used to be my husband, I didn't see a brave hero. I didn't see a victim. I didn't even see a mystery. I saw a man who made choices. A man who built a lie and called it love. He wasn't my husband anymore. He was just William. And I was done facilitating anything. My name is Michelle, and this is what happened when I was pushed beyond restraint. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this story.